me drag. Here I come, baby. I ain't gonna bite you. I just want you to hang on. All right.
The Haunting of Julian House. Things that go smash in the night. Had I just witnessed a miracle? In the fall of 2016, I overcame what any sane person would see as an insurmountable challenge, finding another affordable rental house in Marysville, especially one with the unbelievable timing of becoming available the same week the old house sold and I'd been handed my walking papers. Better yet, the new digs were right up the street. I'd been saved from the certain doom of attempting to find and afford a new rental and then remain sane in busy Helena after years in small towns like East Glacier Park in Marysville. Divine intervention or careful what you ask for? Did you know this is one of the more haunted houses in town? This cheerful revelation came from a trusted neighbor as I hauled stuff up the street. Jeannie Thomas is absolutely credible and only reported what she'd heard. Loud bangs and other noises in the middle of the night. So much so that the current owner that lives in Missouri had to have a Native American shaman perform a sage ceremony to banish them. There's also supposed to be some creepy mirror in which people saw strange things. That wasn't in the brochure. Actually, there wasn't any brochure. The only reason I had the house was due to the fantastic Marysville townsfolk. There were no pitchforks or torches that showed up my first year. And after 2 years, the newcomer must have passed some kind of acceptance threshold. Those who saw my predicament got together, vetting me to their mutual friend the landlord, and I got to move in sight unseen, except of course for the outside. But I cared for nothing more than getting it. Did I care that its original street-facing porch and 1890 structure was a perfect stand-in for Jed Clampett's cabin? Not with the entire back half completely renovated like a Hyatt Regency suite. And its further odd amalgam of modern renovation versus pioneer original only added to the charm. A dark dog-like hall led off the kitchen. That was the modern site for a washer and dryer, but it was part of the original structure. Layers of old wallpaper were peeling off to reveal the 1894 Helena Herald Pioneer Insulation newspaper pages, still plastered tight against hand-hewn log walls. Even June Cleaver would find the patterns of the remaining patchwork linoleum floor quaint and outdated. Entering what I called the dark hall was a step into the past, from the 1940s back through to the 1890s. A trio of ominous narrow doors shut off other ancient unused rooms. There was a low woodshed, a tiny old bathroom choked with dust-covered 1930s era fixtures, and a bedroom-sized chamber, also with original walls and scattered odd personal items, abandoned decades ago. A 1924 edition of Grit, a leather belt aged hard and brittle, old cooking utensils hung on nails, rusty tools, and a pile of 1920s and 1930s newspapers were stacked neatly on a dusty table. A March 1936 edition carried an interesting piece on the hunt for outlaw gangster John Dillinger after his latest jailbreak. The big adjoining living room was part of the original cabin, but taken together, it was like having a modern home with half a haunted house tacked on, complete with the aforementioned creepy mirror. Unremarkable at first glance, rectangular, 1.5 tall, shade over 2 feet long, mounted in a simple, faded green wooden frame, jammed high up on an old shelf in the dark hall. Reflections were muted behind decades of old soot, grease spots, dead flies, dust, spider webs, and hanging cobwebs. Simple thing, but yep, creepy all right, especially with the stories. The scoop from multiple sources, including the owner, himself a personal witness, was that multiple strange bright lights would appear, moving about within the mirror without any reflective source in the outside world. Same confirmations on the loud, unexplained night sounds. But no worries, all quiet since the sage ceremony. In fact, the previous residing couple had no disturbances whatsoever. Of course, there was that one time when the stereo burst on by itself in the middle of the night, but that might have been a timer malfunction, despite never using the feature. But certainly no loud noises or phantom mirror lights. Did they avoid the dark hall by night just like I found myself doing? Should I dig deeper? Or did I even want to know more at this point? Well, if I do, it's only for historical interest and always with respect, I giddily announced aloud that first week, not really believing I was addressing anything more than my own superstitions. Although, let's cover all the bases. Huh? 2 seconds after my declaration of the dark hall, a very distinct metallic tink sounded in the personally dubbed Roaring Twenties room. Subtle, but with the clarity of a 10-penny nail dropping. Hardly a bang or crash, yet something seemed to fall on cue. Room clutter held no revelations besides my own worked-up imagination. And no moonlight horrors erupted other than my own snores. Place for the first 3 months. January 30th. The depths of a dark, frozen night when I woke out of a dead sleep. Felt and looked like about 3 a.m. or damn close enough. No clock was checked. I was sleeping on the sofa in the new part of the house beside the kitchen, with a clear view into the old section up front. Nothing but black silence. What woke me up? Usually I slept like granite. Waking at times, sure, but typically back out in moments. It was unprecedented to even get to the point of opening my eyes to look around. Somehow this time I did, noting the 2 guest dogs I was hosting for a neighbor were also awake. Neither showed any signs of alarm, yet both had their heads up, necks turned for mild looks into the kitchen. Utter peace. It was confusing, until the attack of the poltergeist. Crash is but a mild definition of the metallic, porcelain, dining utensil, small appliance bashing clatter that then exploded out of the kitchen. Take that sound effects that I have available and add about 15,000 chewed up car parts to it. Not exactly a single smash, but more of an avalanche of domestic kitchen items. Exactly, go figure, as if that tall but shaky item-loaded metal shelf stand in the corner just toppled over. It was either that or a skinny, top-heavy lamp I insisted on placing atop the microwave fell over again, but this time taking the toaster, coffee maker, cups, saucers, bread box, several dishes, and a couple fully loaded metal toolboxes along with it. If it was a spooky special movie effect, Steven Spielberg would have approved wholeheartedly with wide grin and happy clapping. So what did I do in this stunning encounter of the paranormal? In an equally remarkable demonstration of how our groggy brain operates, or perhaps fails to, my reaction was nothing more than a disgusted grunt and sneering grumble, absolutely certain it was my own carelessness to blame. It was because I had a unique skill to set things up for later falls. Not one thought of the supernatural. The dogs cringed at the sudden noise, but otherwise lay watching. Check out the mess in the morning. I barely began turning over when another burst of disturbance hit. This next one was fierce enough to vibrate sofa cushions. Think of an extremely irate Dwayne Johnson suddenly appearing in your front room, taking a running kick to a major brace beam, while releasing double armloads of rough-cut lumber to scatter, smashing against the nearest interior walls. Criminy, what a ripple effect! Really outdid myself this time. Snore. To help demonstrate the power of the pounding I heard that night, we'll use this nice hunk of wood and this small axe thingy. This is approximately what it sounded like. Close approximation.
I just sat there.
I woke up annoyed, but glad I waited for the morning to confront both the mess and my new lengths in bookshelf overload, poor kitchen furniture choice, and or whatever home decorating Rube Goldberg time bomb I'd managed to set up for myself. Instead, I confronted the inexplicable. You guessed it, absolutely nothing was out of place. Insert here a whole morning of investigation and attempted debunk. Include several neighbors' inspections and inevitable shrugs. This is right after a brief thaw as well. Metal roof, noted clear all around and specifically examined the afternoon before. Undisturbed old snowpack everywhere else below the roof lines. No tree branches or debris. Not one steaming jet engine embedded in the roof after falling off a passing C-130 or carcasses of 40-pound squirrels, etc., etc. Add to that the difference between confidently hearing things inside versus outside. No dream. The best evidence for me is my utter bonehead reaction, not even cluing into the old reports in the middle of their demonstration. Bright daylight beyond the self-deprecation brought mostly awe. Wow, did that really happen? Yes! Kind of exciting, too. Despite a long and firm personal conviction that encountering a true spook would trigger instant scream and retreat, it was thrilling to consider I witnessed two probable supernatural events. I might have been too ignorant to recognize it at the time, but at least it allowed me to hang around for them both without freaking out. To say nothing of quite likely getting scared out of my residence that very night, never to return. A real possibility had my central nervous system been more engaged. So what next? I made excited reports to calm, nodding neighbors. The owner happened to call that very morning on an unrelated matter and was able to confirm that what I had heard was pretty much the same thing that frightened previous tenants. Far out! One problem before claiming absolute proof. My long distinguished record of being unutterably wrong. Occam's razor ruled my overflows of active imagination into the real world. Namely, that all things being equal, the simplest explanation is the most likely. Yet at the same time, let's not forget absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence. Physics still rule our planet. Some mechanism had either A, produced audio bursts mimicking domestic destruction powerful enough to shake the floor, or B, violently flung about a variety of heavy objects and then, conveniently, silently levitated all objects back into their exact starting points cleaner than a clandestine FBI office search. Or C, I was missing something.
There's no other explanation.
Which option feels most likely? Bottom line, just because I couldn't find a natural explanation doesn't mean there wasn't one. And this coming from the Kansas transplant, with plenty of acute care medical experience, I might add, who mistook the low-frequency drumbeat of mating grouse for symptoms of a terminal aortic aneurysm, and once called in a big cloud as a wildfire. I better be careful. Unless the noises recurred and were able to be documented, it would remain just another tale, no matter how excitably I told it. Blank stares from the dogs when asked for cooperation. Nothing else to do but wait and keep camcorder handy. Or, if I dared, take a closer look at that creepy mirror.
What? Touch it.
Secrets of the Dark Hall. I got up to courage after an anxious week of calm silence. 60-watt light bulbs are my strict conservative limit, but there's a brilliant 100-watt exception burning in the Dark Hall's single outlet. My reflection could barely be made out through the dirt, grime, insect smears, and overhanging cobwebs on the mirror's surface. Several minutes of deep study showed nothing but the need to replace my current razor. It's probably a dubious investigation technique. My face could compete with the scariest of phantoms. Frankly disappointed at the quiet nights, I was ready for a new thrill, not too extreme, mind, and felt prepared to encounter ghost lights in the mirror. I needed to move it into the front rooms where stray fireflies might catch an eye, as it sure wasn't going to happen in the dark hall. That remained daylight use only.
I'm not going back in there.
A whisk broom and Windex got rid of the worst of the dirty film accumulated over who knows how many years. The bottom of the frame had been thickly painted onto the shelf. A razor was required to free its bottom section. The mirror itself was tilted forward at the top, long ago pushed firmly against the hall's low ceiling planks, and was solidly jammed. Dang head! I could only shift it side to side before eventually sliding it one side off the shelf, and when it finally scraped away, I had to brace it against its unexpected weight as a cache of dust-caked letters, old envelopes, and other stashed papers fluttered out in a sooty cloud.
believing in myself.